Hello, welcome back to another episode of John the PM, where we believe that managing projects is not just a job, but a way of life. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about project selection. Why project selection? Well, the reality in life is that we're going to have an awful lot of different projects that we have the quote unquote opportunity to do. However, we're not going to have the time and resources to do all of them. So we have to have some type of process, if you want to call it that, in order to best evaluate the project so that we can decide which ones to actually pursue. And so that entire process is called project selection. One of the key benefits of having a project selection process is that over time you can refine it to make sure that it balances out your portfolio. Two is that it allows for procedural justice within your organization. In other words, everybody knows what the expectations, the standards, and why a certain or particular projects were selected. And if there's no communications from senior management for whatever reason, then they can rest assured that, hey, the leadership did go through this process and this is where we came out. And so that really helps to develop trust within the organization. So again, a lot of times we'll call that procedural justice. All right, back to the task at hand. Let's assume that you have a lot of different projects that are out there. Then let's say we got 5 or 10 projects. What I may do is establish a rubric. And maybe on this rubric on the left-hand side, I will list out all my projects, project 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. And then probably in the first column, I'll say value. And then in the second, third, and fourth column, I will put something to the effect of time, resources, and then profitability. All right, so let's tackle those 4 columns succinctly. The first column, value. So when I say value, what I'm actually saying is this within our value system? Is it within our wheelhouse? Quite frankly, is it something that we do? Now, I am going to use an example here that's a little bit over the top, but I do believe that it'll illustrate the purpose or the point that I'm trying to make here. Let's assume that you are a painter. A person comes by and they say, hey, can you put down some bricks? The job looks easy enough, and in fact, you're pretty sure that you can do it. But remember, you are a painter, not a bricklayer. So you would casually and politely decline the offer. So that's what I'm kind of saying about when I say value. Is it something that you actually do? Is it something that you really aspire, on those side? Now, the other piece of value, besides whether you do it, is do you actually believe in it? So, for example, if you believe in training, then if a training opportunity comes up, then that is what you will do. If you believe in customer service and something that enhances customer service, then you would do it. The corollary is true too. If you happen to not really believe in customer service, and believe it or not, there could actually be times when that could occur, then you would elect not to do that project. So that's what that first column value really kind of represents. Again, that's going to be relative back to the organization and back to the particular circumstances in hand. But hopefully, the examples that I provided will give you enough idea of how to look and approach that particular portion. All right, so you go through your projects 1 through 5, and you find out that, hey, the first 3 are within your value proposition. The last 2 are not, 4 and 5. So 4 and 5, they go away. Awesome. Now you have 3 projects. Again, you might not have the time and or the energy, money, in order to do all of them. So on that second column, time, what I may do is use a rank ordering of 1 to 5, 1 being the best, 5 being the worst. And I would simply look at each project and just ask, how long will this take? If it's a real short amount of time, like fairly quick, boom, 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 I may give that a 1 or a 2. If it's something that's going to take a while, 5, 6, 7 months, a year, I might do 4 or 5. So that's the way I would kind of look at that. Again, if you're more established, you should be able to come out with some kind of relative time frame. All right, so that next column is going to be resources. I am financially driven, so most of the time I am personally just going to monetize it. However, a lot of my clients really do not think in terms of dollars. However, they do think in terms of labor hours. Even if it's all right if you don't think in dollars. Labor hours is perfectly fine. Mathematically, they'll come out to about the same. So kind of using about the same format that I use for time, 1 through 5, 1 being it uses the least amount of resources, 5 being that it takes up the most amount of resources. So if it's something that really just one person perhaps can do, okay, awesome. I might give that a 1. If it's something where it's going to take the entire team to do, maybe all 10 people, then I may give that a 5 on that side. Conversely, if I'm thinking in terms of dollars, if it's something that's relatively inexpensive to do, I'll give that a 1. And if it's something that's going to be relatively expensive to do, where it's going to cost a lot, I may give that a 5. And then if it's somewhere in between, a 3. All right, so we've knocked out the first 2 criteria, okay? Time and then costs, or time and then resources. Again, I do think in dollars. Let's tackle that third one, and that is going to be profitability. All right, so on profitability, another way to think about this is benefits. How much benefits are you going to get? If I'm going to get a lot of benefit, hopefully that didn't escape you. If I'm going to get a lot of benefit, I'm going to give that a 1. Why? Because 1 kind of represents the best. On the other hand, if I'm not going to give that much of a benefit, then I'm going to give that a 5. So kind of keep that in mind, that I do have to kind of keep the rankings in the same format there. 1 being the best, 5 being the worst. So let's talk a little bit more about this benefit or profitability. Normally, in order to get the profitability, you take your revenue minus your expenses equals profitability. If it's going to be a lot of profitability, a lot of money, time as we just defined it, then I may give that a 1. And if it's just not going to provide that much on profits, then I may give that a 5. All right, so what we basically done was create a rubric. Again, I kind of used the 4 columns. The first one going to be value. Is this even something that we do? Okay, and normally that's going to be like my first test. And then the other 3, they're kind of talking through with the time, with the resources, and with the profitability. Again, a lot of times I use 1 to 5, 1 being the best, 5 being the worst. And then I will simply add them up. And the way that it should work or could work is that the projects that have the least amount, those are the ones that I'm probably going to tackle first. The ones that do not yield that much, in other words, they have a higher number, I may put those on the back burner. Who knows? Things can change. More resources can become available, whatever may be the case. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways that you can structure it. Hopefully, I just provided one. From there, you can, kind of adjust it to your own particular situation. By the way, this also works awesome on personal projects, home projects, as well as in the professional world. If you've ever been with me, you'll notice that I tend to use these skill sets wherever I am at, and I would ask you to do the same. And the biggest reason why is because all of them are scalable and repeatable. And if you do them right on the small projects, when you scale up and do it the same way, you'll do perfectly fine even on the larger project. All right, so that kind of wraps up this episode on project selection. If you liked it, please hit the like button below, or hit the subscribe. You know what? Even do both. That would be awesome. In that regard, it helps us to be a better service to you.